Take yourself back, deep in the Middle Ages. Walking along a dirt road, you see a figure in the distance. Then, a sound arrives. The chime of a bell. Look a little closer. You see a sign hanging around their neck. This is your warning. This person has leprosy. You run. Leprosy is a malady as ancient as human history itself, traced back to biblical times and beyond. It has struck terror in the hearts of civilizations across continents, leaving sufferers exiled, stigmatized, and in perpetual suffering. How did a disease that has haunted humanity since antiquity evolve through its origins, outbreaks, and groundbreaking medical breakthroughs? Come along for a ride through something once regarded as never to be survived. Welcome to History on Fleek. The mystery of Patient X. When did leprosy begin? Who was Patient X? Well, the closest we've got to finding out is thanks to the incredible work of archaeologists. According to their work, the earliest possible case is attributed to a skeleton uncovered in India. Amazingly, it dates all the way back to 2000 BCE. Following on from this, we have the first mentions of the disease in ancient literature. Some would say the Old Testament of the Bible refers to a condition that could well be leprosy dating back to 1000 BCE, though this remains in debate for good reason. In 600 BCE, ancient Sanskrit texts from India outline a condition or disease that represents the symptoms of leprosy. Next, there is leprosy mentioned in Chinese literature dating back to 355 to 320 BCE. The earliest evidence of leprosy discovered beyond the East and into Europe belongs to a skeleton found in England, dating back to the 6th century BCE. Still occurring in more than 120 countries, leprosy is caused by Mycobacterium leprae, causing chronic infectious disease. Reporting approximately 200,000 new cases every year, the disease affects skin and peripheral nerves, and should it not be adequately treated, can progress to permanent disabilities. The elimination of leprosy, not meaning totally but down to 1% per a population of 10,000, was achieved in the year 2000. However, its reduction was a gradual matter. Indonesia, Brazil, India, and 13 other countries across the Southern Hemisphere would report 1,000 to 10,000 new cases in 2019. The majority of WHO-reported new cases are detected in Southeast Asia. Leprosy bacteria are passed through droplets inhaled through the mouth and nose from untreated cases. This is most likely achieved through frequent contact. Since the 19th century, medical breakthroughs have been made for the treatment of leprosy. It is today curable through multi-drug therapy. Gruesome secrets. The worst outbreaks of leprosy, probably leprosy at its peak if you will, was during the Middle Ages. From the 5th century to the 15th century, the disease spread across the breadth of Europe. The effects of this were as much seen in the populations of people affected with disease as the stigma and attitudes of those surrounding them. The standard course of action in the Middle Ages against leprosy was to isolate the individuals infected. Come 1200 CE, nearly 20,000 leprosy hospitals could be found across Europe. It's believed from the 11th to the 13th centuries CE, trade routes across Europe were the main spread of leprosy. It would also be spread during this era by the pilgrims and crusaders of Europe to the Holy Land. This is the likely cause of the most famed case of leprosy of the time, Baldwin IV, King of Jerusalem. Acute sufferers were feared to be a contagion, so they would be forced into isolation at their homes. Those without the wealth to live in isolation in their dwellings faced segregation into leper hospitals, or leprosaria as they were known. So ostracized were sufferers outside the hospitals, they were made to walk the roads ringing bells to warn anybody of their incoming presence. The condition was known at the time as the living death, as routinely its victims were viewed and treated like they already were. This is not an exaggeration or turn of phrase. These infected persons could have relatives claim an inheritance from them while they were still alive. Akin to most considerations of disease and bodily afflictions of this time, leprosy was viewed as a punishment from God. Should a person be showing the symptoms of leprosy in the Middle Ages, their souls were riddled with sin. Public attitudes to sufferers of leprosy weren't all that blanket though. If we look at England in the Middle Ages, it's a lot more of a mixed bag. The disease entered England in the 4th century and was part of everyday life by the middle of the 11th. England shows us a clear split in how many viewed the affliction. There was, as mentioned, the perspective that divine punishment was the cause, but there were other more nuanced interpretations as well. Many saw the suffering caused by leprosy as comparable to the suffering of Christ for our sins. These people believed their suffering was that of purgatory on earth. Therefore, they would go straight to heaven after they died and were inevitably closer to God than many. People caring for leprosy sufferers or making charitable donations hoped that such efforts would bring them closer to heaven and reduce any time they were due in purgatory. It's worth clarifying that a lot of the stigma and characterizing of leprosy stems from biblical times, and in particular, its commentary in the Bible. There is the famed story of Jesus healing the lepers, which is a derogatory term now, mind you. There are many mentions throughout the Bible of leprosy and the derogatory term above. However, it's come to be understood that leprosy found in the Bible in ancient times was not the disease we've come to understand and treat in a medically advanced age. Leprosy, as called in the Bible, was more or less a roundabout term for a whole plethora of illnesses and conditions in a day and age without the knowledge to understand them. Moreover, many conditions of what the Bible outlines as leprosy were highly contagious, which our modern Hansen's disease is not. Much of biblical and historical leprosy did not have blindness, loss of pain, and disfigurement found in Hansen's disease. Careful with your classifications. In antiquity and eras beyond, they appear to have gotten it wrong. The untold truths. There are many myths surrounding leprosy. This is partly down to the historical stigma sufferers have faced, but also down to the highly religious societies that faced the worst outbreaks of leprosy. These societies were also miles away from the medical knowledge that would arrive in the late 19th century. Many have thought for years that leprosy is hereditary, but this isn't true. The disease cannot be transmitted genetically. This would also include mothers with leprosy passing on to their babies. Leprosy is not a disease that spreads transplacently. Perhaps the most profound myth about leprosy is its ability to spread easily and that it's highly contagious. Many believe, or at least have believed, that it can spread through shaking hands, hugging, or even just sitting next to someone. This could not be further from the truth. Approximately 95% of adults cannot catch the disease, as their immune system can fight the bacteria causing the onset. Consistently, leprosy has been characterized as causing limbs and extremities to physically fall from the body. Digits may become numb, may even in the most extreme cases become reabsorbed into the body. Fall off? No, that's just another myth. Unlike eras previous, a person with leprosy does not need to live in an isolated environment. When treated with antibiotics, they can live a normal, provincial life like anybody else. Last but not least, no, leprosy is not a sexually transmitted disease. Still out there today. Leprosy would be in decline in most of the Western world come the 1800s, but not all of it. The northern parts of Europe most certainly still had their troubles. By the end of the 17th century, Iceland, England, and Norway had significant leprosy problems across their populations. Norway would take the lead and break the Western trend of embracing isolation and avoiding medical innovation, appointing a medical superintendent for the condition in 1845 and creating a national register for sufferers just 2 years later. This would be the first of its kind in the entire world. Gerhard Armour Hansen, the medical superintendent, was a physician who would make the breakthrough of a lifetime working with the disease. His major discovery of Mycobacterium leprae turned out to be the causative bacteria of leprosy. In Norway, 1873, the cause of the spread of leprosy among humans had been found, and previously held ideas of bad air belonging to the Middle Ages could finally be left behind. So profound was this discovery, the condition would be known medically as Hansen's disease from there on out. Understanding of the cause had been found, and given a century, the world was on its way to a cure. A rudimentary but effective treatment called pronomial was introduced in 1940 with only marginal results. In the 1950s, dapsone was introduced to the treatment market and was considerably effective. The addition of clofazimine and rifampicin over the next 20 years would go even further in combating the disease. Such breakthroughs were made with these treatments that in 1981, the World Health Organization would outline multi-drug therapy with antibiotics alongside these effective treatments as the way forward. As the millennium approached and the Western world took something of a globalist zenith, the WHO would take the kind of medical stride the world hopes for. In 1995, multi-drug treatment for leprosy patients would be made free worldwide, with donors and pharmaceutical giants including Novartis making this possible. By the year 2000, the World Health Organization could declare an affliction dating to antiquity eliminated as a global public health problem. So where does the eliminated public health problem stand today? Despite the great work and grand announcements some 20 years prior, it remains a sizable concern across Africa, Asia, and South America. Across the regions affected, the lower class is the most affected and vulnerable to the disease. Many areas around the world still associate affliction with sexual promiscuity or even transmission from animals. Some symptoms' ability to darken skin pigmentation has also shown tragic social ramifications for people suffering from the disease. Efforts continue not only to eradicate the disease, but also to eradicate the surrounding stigma. This is History on Fleek. We'll see you next time.